Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome my guest, Sean Chang. Hey Sean, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on here, Blair.
Oh man, the pleasure is all mine. I'm really excited to get to know you tonight, and thank you for your time. Truly.
Oh, of course. No, again, I love what you're doing, and what an honor it is to be on here and just share a little bit of my story.
Man, no, the honor is truly mine. Before we jump into what Sean does, I'm even more honored because I'm sure you're exhausted from from what I would imagine is a really long day that I'm going to learn about in this next hour. So, Sean, without further ado, what is it that you do?
Hey, so I'm a restaurateur specifically. I opened up a Korean fried chicken concept here in the city of Atlanta, and yeah, I kind of do a little bit of everything, jack of all trades sorts. So I opened the concept with my best friend, but I did the entire menu. I mean, I run the store, I manage, schedule, everything that a manager does. But like today, we had someone not available for our morning shift, so I went in and did cashier, greeted customers, being personable as well too. So everything that goes around the restaurant, I've kind of built it with a lot of help as well, but as well as still maintaining and giving it sustenance.
That's really incredible. I can't imagine the amount of work that goes into something like that. And I'm excited to hear how it all started. Can you remind my list or not remind, can you tell my listeners how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 26 years old.
Okay, like that's so crazy to me.
Oh,
You've probably accomplished more in your life than I have I'm 10 years older than you. And so
no, everyone's in their own lane, in their own journey, and
yes.
yeah. So I don't, a lot of people do say, "Wow, like, wow, 대단해," or like 멋있다, and I
Mm,
was like, "What?" And they're like, "Oh, you did something. Yeah, you dreamt of something. You actually did it." But I was
yeah.
like, "To each their own. Your timing will come, and sure, it might not be a restaurant, but those small accomplishments you have in life, as long as you get to them and you're able to do them, I think you're just as successful or
Mm.
멋있어 as what people say out to be."
No, Sean, I really appreciate you saying that. I am also a big fan of, hey, it's the time is coming, your time is coming. It's all about the timing and God's timing of whatever it is
Mm.
that He has planned for your life. So I appreciate you saying that because it's really encouraging, even for me. Right?
Oh.
um. Okay. So what is your restaurant called?
Yeah, our restaurant is called Mokja Korean Fried Chicken.
Okay. I have so many questions, but but let's start with this. Why a Korean fried chicken place in specifically the city of Atlanta?
Yeah. So it's a huge story, but the best way to kind of paraphrase or shorten the reasoning is I took a lot of inspiration. I grew up in the 2000s era, like the beginning of YouTube, a lot of exposure to the internet as well as what other people are doing around the world. And I was just inspired as a Korean American that moved to Georgia, Beaufort specifically,
Mm,
next to a lot of farms. I think we were one of the first subdivisions in our street to open up. There wasn't much to do. If you're familiar with Georgia, you need cars to get anywhere
mm,
as an adult. But if you're, elementary school student, you're kind of just stuck at home or playing with your neighborhood friends, and so that brought up a lot of influence of me seeing these up and rising Asian American chefs from the 2000s, whether it's big names such as David Chang or Eddie Hong, or, Edward Lead in Kentucky, or it's going to be Roy Choi with Kogi Truck. And so those
Roy
were like,
Choi. Oh my
yeah,
goodness. Kogi truck. That's okay. That's like really old school. But
yeah. So it was those moments and those early exposures that really planted the seed for cooking. It's not like I wanted to grow up and be a restaurateur, but when the opportunity came and I was put in a position to, I guess, figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I said, wow, I want to do cooking. I love serving people. What is the
Mm,
best way to serve Atlanta, the city that I want to be in, because our mission statement is to bring Korean flavors to the Southeast and eventually to all of America. And so, what better way than having fried chicken or um, think of it as a blank canvas or your your vehicle, which is going to be Southern familiar foods such as fried chicken, mac and cheese,
Yes.
slaw, and things of
Yes.
that nature, and adding Korean elements and flavor so that it's not too foreign for people to be introduced to.
Wow. Okay. I mean, so this wasn't just something that you thought of overnight. It really sounds like something you dreamed up.
Oh yeah, if I really look at it, there was like so many moments of my life have really shaped up to this moment per se.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into that, Sean.
Mhm.
What are you alluding to right now? What do my listeners need to know?
Oh man. As in like my entire upbringing or about the restaurant or
Let's start from the beginning. Yeah, like
yeah.
even like your upbringing, like how you started dreaming something like this up. Yeah, from you said you grew up in Buford, is that what you said?
Yeah, so but I was originally born in Los Angeles, California, in
Oh,
Downey, so surrounded by a huge Korean community.
what's up? I went to UC Irvine. I don't know if you
Oh
know that.
wow,
Yeah.
that I did not know that.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
my
goodness.
parents, they live in Costa Mesa right now.
Okay, so
Mhm.
my family still, I guess all my extended family still live out there. So they're in Anaheim, they're in Koreatown. Where else? I think Buena Park as well too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
just still
yeah.
still Torrance, so they're still out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of I was born around that Galleria area. Lived
That's
there
so
until I was
crazy.
3,
Okay.
and then moved to Torrance. And
Uh-huh.
even like while going to school in Torrance, like thing about California compared to here, there's just so many more Asians.
Right.
And so, yeah, I grew up around so many Korean people. I spoke a lot of Korean growing up. My family's super big on family. So, like weekends, we went over to Kumo's house, and
Mm.
waking up super early. She had omurice and whatever jjigae she was making for that day. And if it was a kimchi like 담는 week, that's what we are doing. Or if it was just like watch Korean dramas with the 어른들 drinking bakkasu and eating natdomsan, like that was our weekends. But being exposed to a lot of family time and in doing so, more Korean food. That was a really big, I guess, shaping or pivotal moment in my life because
Mm.
when I moved over to Georgia, my parents had divorced, and I moved with my dad and my younger brother here in Beaufort, Georgia.
Mm.
There, it was like really hard to get Korean food, other than if you were cooking at home. But
Right,
I
right.
moved when I was 8 years old. So what did I know how to do? 계란 fry with like 밥, 간장, and 참기름.
Yum.
It's delicious, but I'm not going to get any fancier than that unless my dad
Yeah.
was taking me out. But as you know, like many other immigrants, everyone's hustling to put food on the table, pay for the bills. So I rarely saw my dad; he was hustling, and
Mm.
if I did see him, he would just, or he wanted to see us, he just bring us along to work.
Really?
Yeah. So he was an entrepreneur by heart, over there and over here.
Uh-huh.
So he had like taquerias, he had like nightclubs. This is gonna be a while. You're like really confused right now.
What?
But my dad, his story is even incredible as well too, because his family immigrated to Argentina in Buenos Aires before coming to
No
LA.
way.
Yeah.
Dude, Sean, I just feel like we've gotten a lot closer in the last 5 minutes. So my husband is Korean Brazilian.
That's crazy. There's actually a lot of
Yeah.
Koreans in South America in
There's
this
so
war.
many.
There's so
So
many.
many. Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he ended up learning Spanish because he moved there when he was 20, lived there for like 7 years or so, and then eventually moved to LA. And even in LA, it's like so many Mexican people because it used to
Right.
be Baja California. So
Hmm.
so even in the work that they do, they still work with Mexicans on a day to day. They're speaking Spanish. So he, instead of learning English, he's just Korean and some broken Spanish, and that's kind of the business sense that he took here when he moved to Georgia.
That's
That's why we had the
crazy. That's
taquerias
so
and
crazy.
the nightclubs.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Wait, do you speak any Spanish?
I actually, so I've been learning Spanish since middle school, just very
Uh-huh.
casually, but I just started speaking the past year and a half.
Uh-huh.
So it's conversational for the most
Wow.
part. Yeah, and
Okay.
I'm very thankful for it. Like, um, yeah, just having workers, restaurant industry is notorious for having, I guess, immigrants, and they only
Yes.
speak Spanish. But I have a huge heart for immigrants. Just their
Mm.
story, what they get here, like, and as Korean owners, I see that there's a lot of burnout for the immigrants because they're just treated so poorly, paid very little. There's no communication
Sure.
because there's
Yeah.
a language barrier. But for me, if I was going to go that route, I wanted to help them the best that I can because they're human at the end of the day. And I wanted to
Yes.
be personable because I know that relationship, taking care of someone, being able to converse with each other is an important part for healthy relational building
Yeah.
and good relation as a boss and employee. So I took it upon myself to start taking Spanish classes to be more intentional in understanding their conversations. And yeah, it's definitely helped my business a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow. You were saying that you would go on like with your dad to these business
Yeah.
meetings and stuff?
Exactly. So
Uh-huh.
so if he's running the nightclub and there's no one to babysit us, he'll just take us and we're just sitting in the office and
Wild.
yeah, wow, we're watching the cameras. We're like, 9, my little brother's like 6, and we're just playing on our DS or something like
Uh-huh,
that.
uh-huh.
And the whole night's still going on, and then we'll leave at like 4 a.m. in the morning.
Ooh,
I remember a lot of nights sleeping on the couch on the weekends, things like that.
hustling, hustling.
Yeah, and that's what Pop was doing to feed us, and we were
Yeah.
just following it along. But now that I look back, I was like, wow, it was those moments. I was like, my dad's like, 진짜 멋있다고. Like he's a hustler.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure, for sure. Amazing. Okay, so do you feel like, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is a lot of your entrepreneurial like kind of heart maybe is inherited from your dad.
I definitely think it's for my family. Like I think
Mm,
everyone on my family side, they're all entrepreneurs. Like I know that my 셋째 고모 with her husband owns like a clothing store in
okay.
Korea. So like my 작은 아빠, 큰 아빠, 큰 고모, 막내 고모, they all do the fashion. I guess wholesale. They do design.
Are
They
they still in
do
Argentina?
no. They moved in LA in the early '90s,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
they've built a company since then. It's massive in fashion district.
I
Uh,
see. What's
yeah.
it called?
So they have a place called Chocolate USA and then Sky USA. So
Okay.
how the business works, they do a lot of white label stuff as well too. So whether it's like JCPenney's, Papaya, TJ
Yes.
Maxx, Marshalls, if you want certain clothes in there but you want your label brand, they'll
Uh-huh.
make it, design it, and just put your label on and sell it to them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay. Nice. So, okay, definitely your family has influenced your entrepreneurial like kind of personality, right?
Exactly.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. So, you are in high school
Mhm.
at some point and then do you decide like what you're going to do with your life yet or how does that work?
Yeah. So in high school, I honestly had no clue what I wanted to do. My dad was like, "Oh, you have to go to Ude. You have to be a doctor. Like, you have to study hard." So I did study hard. I had
Mm,
a full ride to Georgia.
go dogs.
Yeah, go dogs. Didn't graduate there, but yeah, full ride. I studied really hard. I played hard as well too, but um, I thought that was like the route to go. I wouldn't say I was a genius. I just did well. Like I knew when to study and do things correctly. I knew
Mhm.
when to have fun. I think I definitely had a good balance. And then in college, I was figuring out like, wow, I'm gonna spend, like a decade studying. This does not sound like a life that feels meaningful.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
shout out to everyone who's a doctor. You're doing great things. But for me
Yes.
personally, right, I was just like, no way, this can't be it. And slowly my dad was realizing like, man, why, you're gonna be working crazy hours. You're probably not gonna see your family. Sure, you might make money, but you're not gonna have money to spend or have time to spend that money. And so
Mm,
he's like, Sean, maybe you should just be an entrepreneur, whether it's joining the family business or something in that nature.
okay.
And I distinctively remember that conversation my senior year of high school. So yeah, I go through my first semester, and during that time, I was at this dorm called 1516. Instead of being at UGA, rather than being just a freshman-oriented dorm, it was all 4 levels, but
Okay.
which made socializing quite difficult. Like nobody was really
Mm,
opening their doors and going
right.
from dorm to dorm. So I took it upon myself every Friday night to open up the third floor kitchen and cook for people Korean food, and just to spark conversation, just to bring social gathering because I knew how important food was to bring people together. That was the easiest way to get people interested. Free food who's not gonna say yes, and it just got everybody in that kitchen talking. People
Wow.
that you wouldn't see before. It was so great, beautiful diversity. What I like to put.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm like so amazed because like, um, That's not normal, Sean. Like, I mean, I'm sure you know, like, but to initiate a gathering like that, especially as a freshman, but the desire for community to happen is really
Mm,
special. Okay, awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so what grew from that?
Yeah.
Just
So
like,
I kind of really thought whether or not I wanted to be a doctor a lot during that time. And then I kind of took it upon myself and said, I think I really want to cook. Like, so I've been cooking for people. Like, I loved food. I grew up around this food culture. I mentioned even on YouTube, like that era of growing and having these cooking channels explode and things of that nature, being
yeah.
so accessible to different recipes. I didn't just have to call my kumo to ask for, hey, kumo, how do I make this kochori or something like that? It
Mm-hmm.
was all available on just on your computer or even your phone.
Mm.
And I spent a lot of my junior and senior year in high school don't skip school, kids, but I skipped school and I would cook for people if they skipped with us and at my house. And that's just how I love serving people.
Yeah.
It was just a beautiful moment for me to see that something I worked so hard on, although it's gone in seconds, but it put a smile on people's faces and it brought everyone to the table.
I
Um,
love that so much.
it's still true to this day.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ultimately drop out of college and go stage in Europe. Yeah, I said, wow, I want to do Korean food, a contemporary Korean food,
Uh-huh.
but I want to go just work for free and just work from a bottom way up, whether it's a komi or just dishwasher, and just work my way up in the kitchen. This romance of cooking, and that was a
Yeah, I'm
thing for a
like,
lot of
oh, what
people.
movie is this from? No, just kidding.
But yeah, that was
Okay.
definitely that fall. I remember distinctly. It was like a fall um, time of that freshman year, and I was like, man, this is what I want to do. And
Oh man.
I didn't bring it up to my dad, but I was like saving money, and I was like ready to, because I was getting refunds from my scholarships, and I was like, okay, I have enough money to logistically go to Europe,
Yes.
and I was planning things out, and I was being a stupid 18-year-old. But I unfortunately got into a crazy life-changing accident
Mm.
in January of 2016, my second semester freshman year. I was paralyzed from the waist down from a car accident, which was
Oh
entirely my fault.
no.
Wasn't drunk or anything, just fell asleep on the wheel.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and in that moment, and I won't break too much down of how I got into the accident, but once I impacted, I lost sensation on my legs. I didn't pass out. I was awake for all of this, and I remember feeling my legs for one split second and losing sensation, and then I remember screaming and panicking and not understanding what had happened. I had to sustain a spinal cord injury. It meant that my spinal cord was pinched, and it was mainly from the swelling from the impact,
Oh my word.
and since there was no one around, I actually bent over with a broken back, which I wasn't supposed to do. But again, it's my first time ever breaking a bone in 18 years. I
Right.
didn't know I had a spinal cord injury. I just thought I was in shock. And so that bending over had caused more pressure to pinch on my spinal cord, which
Uh-huh.
really caused severe injury, according to my surgeon. But at the same time, my surgeon told me like, hey, like your burst fraction, how my vertebrae, the T12 had split, you were bleeding internally. So, if you didn't call, you were playing with time right there. If you didn't call, who knows if you would have bled out, internally or not.
Oh
So
my
I call it
goodness.
the grace of God that, despite the injuries, despite the paralysis, we're still here,
Yes.
But
Yes.
I remember distinctively, I was praying. I was like, God, I don't know if I'm going to die, but just let my parents know I love them. Let me know my family I love them. And yeah, I just hope that I'm gonna make it. And people say like, oh, you hear a voice. I had this overwhelming sensation, just like calm me, all panic disappeared and said, Sean, you're fine. I don't know if you're gonna walk again, but I promise you, you're gonna be okay. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And so
Oh.
yeah, and I've been good ever since. Sure, there are ups
Yeah.
and downs, but I'm still alive. I'm still thriving.
Yes.
Life is
Yes.
moving forward, and I still look back to that day, and I think that moment in time, for when I heard that and felt that, it like forever imprinted in me. And that's kind of why I have like an immense amount of optimism every
No,
single
yeah.
waking moment in my life.
Yes. I hope that myself included, like we can live that way through you. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like through your experience and stuff. That's really incredible. Man, thank goodness that you're here and we can all experience mokja
Oh, yeah,
from that.
it
But
is definitely, yeah, you could say it's a gift from God.
yes. Okay, so obviously I am curious though. Like how long did it take you from like, the accident through recovery to even
Mhm.
just be able to like function? And I mean, I'm as optimistic as you are. I'm sure there were many times that was like, are you going to get up the next day? Right? Am I wrong?
Actually, because I was so sure from that, I'm telling you, at that moment when I prayed and it said you're gonna be okay, I wasn't on antidepressant compared to everybody else on the floor at my rehab
Okay.
center. I was happy and optimistic every single day. There were moments where,
Sean.
I was in pain but I was like, I know that I'm gonna be okay. So even if there's a bad bump in the road, everything's gonna be okay. So like that's what I'm saying. This overwhelming optimism really triumphs a lot of the bad days. And sure, bad days happen. That's life. And
Yes.
sure, but I didn't really have a moment where, other than when I got sent to Korea and got stuck there, and well, I'll briefly share that. Other than that moment, everything has been pretty. Yo, thank you God for this life. Because after almost dying, everything's a plus in life. Yeah, seriously, everything's a
Sorry, I don't
plus.
mean to like chuckle, but like, but I mean, yeah, I apologize for assuming otherwise, Sean. I'm faithless, and I guess, but no, but no, but like I thank you for being so transparent and honest about that. I think that's really incredible. Like, for me, that's like, you know what, that really is God. Like he
Mm,
is real because
mm,
that's not it's not um I feel like it's not what usually happens because you just mentioned like on your floor too there were many people that were suffering and going through depression or what
yeah.
is that what you said? Is what you
Yeah,
said,
I
right?
don't wish this upon anybody. Your whole
Yeah,
life
yeah.
changes.
Yeah, but that's really amazing. Thank you for sharing that part of your story with me. What about Korea now?
Yeah, so my dad, as any loving parent, you're a mother yourself. You would do anything for
Yes.
your child,
Of course, yeah.
especially after they were 멀쩡하게 걸었는데, they were fine
Mm,
walking and now, paralyzed and the doctor's saying it's permanent. You're gonna try everything in your power to do what you can as a parent. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best option for your child as well.
yeah.
So he had sent me, being as Korean as he is, he had sent me to Korea to do Eastern medicine. So I stayed at a Hanbang hospital. On
Okay.
top of physical therapy, they were doing chim, they were like doing thum, like burning incense and making me drink hanyak, and like none of this was working. And I wasn't even sold on that. Like, I've had already made peace with not walking again. Not that I have given up, because I remember a sermon. It was back at my freshman year at UGA, where like it was a corny one. It was like microphone, the wired microphone, right? The
Uh-huh.
microphone portion is our life. It's very short, but the cord, it goes endlessly, and that's what eternity is. So I really
Mm,
like God really put it in perspective, as in like, Sean, I know you might be very like uncomfortable in the chair, and there's going to be hard times, but know that like that's not what I created you for. Like when you
yeah.
come and live in paradise, like you don't have to worry about that. So like,
Yeah.
understanding that and coming to terms with that, I didn't give up on walking. I just knew that my time here is what it's set for, and I'll just find thankfulness and appreciation despite my situation. That's
Yeah.
yeah. But obviously, no one's gonna understand that other than myself, because everyone's like, "Oh, poor
Mm,
you. You're disabled. You're in the
right.
chair.
Right.
Your life must suck." Like that's, and I understand why, because perspective is a huge thing.
Mm.
So yeah, my dad had left me in Korea, took my passport, and was like,
Oh
"Hey,
my
like you
gosh.
can't come back. You have to go through the treatment." And like it was. I remember I was on the 12th floor, and I'm in the chair, unlike all the other patients, and I was like, my life sucks. I'm miserable. Like I like God.
Mm,
I'm okay with what had happened. I've come to terms with
mm,
it, and I'm thankful to be alive. But why am I trapped here? Why am I spending my days here? Why am I stuck here? Why
yeah.
can't I just like Yeah, and I went to a really dark place, and I like was laughing and crying because I wanted to jump off the 12th floor, but I couldn't because I couldn't even stand. So I was just crying, staring at the glass wall.
Oh
Yeah,
my word.
yeah. So that yeah, there was a very deep moment because I was
Oh my
stranded there. I'm a foreigner
goodness.
because I'm Korean American. I
Right.
speak Korean pretty comfortably,
Right.
but I'm still, as any Korean American knows very well, in America you're Korean, but in Korea you're an American. You have no home. You have no
Yes.
understanding, and that was even more being 3 months in Korea. So that was the darkest moment of my time. Yeah.
Man, you know what's going through my mind though is like you said, I am a parent. And I'm thinking about your dad too. I'm
Mhm.
sure he thought this is right. He
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm
like
saying.
고생
Yeah.
even though my son is like 힘들어 and the 고생해 like
Hmm.
work has to go through this, like he has to go through this is what he was thinking. You know,
Yeah.
like you have to do this in order to like what if it does work, you know, like
Work,
things like that.
exactly. That
Oh
hope
my
and
goodness. And then you just
that's
got depression and like,
yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
God.
But I
Um,
mean, I had the heart to see where dad was coming from.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was just praying and hoping, like asking, hey, just give me more strength to keep pushing on because I know where his heart is. I know his intentions
Mm,
are good. And although
yeah.
he's not understanding my heart, I hope that he does one day. Yeah.
Yeah. That's hard. Okay, so like you have this new optimism now.
Hmm.
And so then I'm assuming something is birthed out of that. But what happens next?
Yeah.
After you
So
go, oh, sorry, we were talking about the like, how long did it actually take for you to like get out of the hospital and like live a somewhat normal
mm,
life for you? Like,
5 months.
oh, okay, it's less than
Yeah.
I thought actually, but
Yeah, I moved pretty quick. I was determined to show I was determined to show my parents, hey, I'm disabled, but I will make it. I'll make this work.
that's
And
great.
so I transferred my credits to GGC. It did a summer semester to catch up what I missed my second semester. I transferred to Georgia State because while I was in rehab center, I prayed about what I wanted to do, and I told God, hey God, I want to do restaurants, and I don't know if you approve of this, if this is what's in my life, but
Uh huh.
it's a heart that I've had and I want to explore it.
Okay.
So I just ask that you just watch over while I do this. Whether I fail or not, that's fine. I just want to let you know that this is something I wanted to pursue. And so I made that decision while at Shepherd Center, my rehab, and I transferred to Georgia State for a hospitality degree and a focus in restaurants.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then you just okay. Actually, that degree. What does that mean? Hospitality and restaurants.
So hospitality is basically the service of being hospitable, basically, whether
Okay.
it's anything that's in service related. So private events, weddings, music, or like, music events, food and beverage, hotels. That's what hospitality is. You're
Okay.
serving people.
Okay. And so this is a major that is in most universities.
Not really in most university. I
Oh,
think it was
okay.
here, Cornell, and then a university in Las Vegas at the time.
I know Vegas is really popular with
Hmm.
hospitality. Yes, that's I've heard that before. Okay. And so you said I mean, okay, I guess what I'm asking is does a major offer courses that will like get you started in like restaurants and
Yes and no. Like they focus more on restaurant management, but
okay.
I personally think that schools can teach you all they want on textbooks, but
Mm,
in order to truly get what you're going to be doing, you need to be out there in the field, whether it's through an internship or actually working a part-time job. And that's really applicable in restaurants. Like you can be theoretical all you want, but you won't know until you actually go into the space where you're working in.
right. I agree. My husband and I always talk about how we wish we had worked for a year or two before going to college because
Mm,
then you would actually learn something. But
yeah,
but
I agree.
okay, but my I guess my question also is okay, someone's listening right now and they're like, "Oh, like I want to be a like go into restaurants or go into hotels." Like is hospitality like helpful in getting into those fields?
I think when you're approaching college, you need to
Uh-huh.
be intentional. You need to be using the resources. Like college is
Mm.
not just taking the classes. It's about using the network there because a lot of the professors are well networked.
Yes.
And they if you are and I'm telling this right now, if you're listening, if you are going into classes, networking with your professors, going into these events, and just being out there, you're already ahead of the game because not many
Mm,
students do that because a lot of students are lost. They don't know what they're doing. They
yes,
just think, I
yes.
take my class and I'm going to get a job. And that's not true. You have to put
Mhm.
the groundwork, you have to be out there, be presentable, and just that's how life works. Networking. If you know somebody, that's gonna make it easier for you to climb wherever you are, whether it's corporate setting or a blue collar job. That's how it works.
Yes, yeah, that's a lot of the actually advice people give on the podcast too.
Mm,
And I think it should be easier today, I feel like, with social media, but at the same time I think it's also made a lot of people, this is my just my soapbox now, like
hmm
a little bit like more introverted too on because it's
hmm
like just a screen between people, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is an interesting concept to think about. But yes, networking is very important. Okay, so um you graduate with a degree in hospitality, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, and then what?
So I actually, Mokja was a senior project at Georgia State for a class called franchising. And so we
Oh,
were
so it's
tasked
like, okay, interesting. Okay.
we were
Uh-huh.
tasked for our final project to make a franchise, obviously for franchise class. So we had
Uh-huh.
to get all the analytics in terms of like doing a business plan as well as getting our comps. And yeah, just basically doing. If you did that project seriously, you could actually pitch it. If it's a decent project, you could actually pitch it to a bank or an investor, and
Uh-huh.
they would
Uh-huh.
actually, yeah, they would actually be interested. But we actually had a full panel of entrepreneurs that came and sat and graded our projects.
Really?
Yeah.
I've heard there's something similar at Georgia Tech with like all the engineering departments. They have to do like a capstone project and like
hmm
it's actually like at the end of it you should be able to take it to any like firm
hmm
and you can use it as like a job, what is it,
Yeah,
interview or
I
something.
I think yeah, again, it's about the intentionality. If you truly
Uh-huh.
took the time, like for me, I went to restaurant after restaurant after restaurant, meeting with managers, meeting with owners, sitting down,
Mm-hmm.
talking to them for 2 hours, and really understanding my comps for for this concept. Uh,
Interesting.
and I took it very seriously. I got a
Yeah.
95
Ooh,
for that.
not
Yeah,
what? That's it?
yeah,
Just kidding.
95. But that's kind of where the idea came from. But like even in college or during college, despite being in the wheelchair, I was trying to get a job in the restaurant field because I already knew how important it was to be in there. But to no one's surprise, it's really hard to work in a kitchen while being in a wheelchair. It's a
Right.
logistical nightmare. So I had someone called Edmund. Shout out to Edmund Hong.
Oh,
He
I know
helped
Edmund.
yeah, he helped. He used to do a pop-ups
Yeah,
here.
that's right.
Yeah, and I used to pop in here and there, and he was like, "Hey, come do herb work or help out a line," and that was like the smallest introduction that really that left a impression to be like, wow, I think I really want to do this. And that, yeah, that was my foot in the door to
Wow.
really getting some experience. I had worked at other restaurants before my injury, but it was really difficult to find something after injury. But
Mm.
with that, that really gave me my motivation to travel more, to eat more, to understand operations and kitchens more. So I would travel and just be in restaurants and just stare at kitchens, just see how the lines work and things like that. Yeah, just really understanding the business side of what makes a good kitchen run. And that's just again being intentional with what you want to do. And while all that was going on, we were doing cookouts at my apartment with my roommate and inviting people over. Hey, what do you think about a teriyaki concept in Atlanta? Because he's from Seattle. He has family from Seattle. Teriyaki's huge there. Teriyaki actually really big in California and SoCal as well. There's a place I grew up called Rascals. Used to be a
Okay.
Japanese little mini mart, but they serve the best teriyaki chicken and Chinese chicken salad
Oh.
ever in California. I'm not sponsored, but if you're ever in California, give it a shot. But yeah, all of this was going on during my time. So
I
yeah,
see.
trying to find restaurants to work in, helping admin with a small little pop-ups, and cooking for friends and families at the apartment, and then taking restaurant courses and classes, and eventually doing this major project. And once I graduated, I told Peter, who was the co-founder of Mokcha, I'm like, yo, are you doing anything? He graduated from Georgia Tech in finance. He's like, no, he worked at restaurants since 16. I was like, dude, you have great front of house experience. I have a decent knowledge of not per se operations for back of house or the kitchen, but I can cook. Let's
Hmm.
let's do something. And that's where Mokcha really took its spotlight. of like, hey, let's open a Korean fried chicken concept here in the city for the city?
Okay, so just so amazing, honestly. But like I'm listening and I'm like, I feel overwhelmed, right? Like I'm like, okay, like all of that, I love it. I am all for dreaming big and making things happen. I'm all about it, trust me. Hopefully we get to know each other more after this. But like how do you okay, you have kind of like a plan from
Mhm.
your senior project, right? And you have some sort of ideas of how to get started, but how do you really get started? You know,
Yeah.
like where do you start to like even okay, I want to open a restaurant.
Mhm.
Like what do you do?
So what I mean, there's no step one, step two, step three. There was just a
Okay.
lot of moving parts that. So for us, we were looking for a location first. We
Um
knew the general idea. We haven't even made a menu, but we knew what we had to find a location that made sense to be in, and we had to understand the foot traffic, the cost per square feet, the overhead, all of that. And
mhm.
so we initially started with the real estate agent, but they did not work in our favor at all. They had really hurt us more than helped us. So
Oh
we,
man.
after using them for a year and failing, we ended up just driving around the city by like just us two, looking for lease signs and just cold calling and seeing if people would be interested in our business plan and our concept.
Mm.
And so that was where we started. And once we and you know, since during that we had 1 year where we had no luck, and so Peter was still working and I was kind of slowly developing a menu and understanding like what we wanted to really pursue on that menu. And the most important is like, hey, what about funding? How did you get funding? For me,
Yes.
again, networking is huge. So I was able to get a private angel loan through my family, and yeah. And if you sure, I took courses on how to get an SBA loan and things of that nature, but I didn't
Mhm.
have to. And again, the smartest business you can do is giving less equity of your concept of your business for your
Mhm.
money. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of the route that I took. But I did do my background research. If I needed to get SBA or I needed to pitch it to the Chamber of Commerce in Atlanta, I was ready to do that. But
Mm.
I took the best deal that I was given. And again,
Mhm.
that's just networking, knowing the people that you know as well. So all of that was going on, like sourcing a place, doing the menu, like in conjunction while this whole year of failing to find a location, all of the background work or the groundwork was getting put together. And then
Mm.
and yeah, putting a team to kind of put our vision into something tangible. But I remember, I think it was in 2019 wintertime. We had found a space. It was in Midtown. It was off the off street, but still, it's in Midtown. We thought it was a prime location. There was so much foot traffic from I guess the corporate workers, and we thought,
Okay.
wow, what better place to be in? We thought Midtown would be a lot more open to the idea of Korean food, just because of the I guess demographics that was there too. So we called and they took a chance on us, even though we're a brand new concept with no ownership experience. We did our work. They were very excited for the concept, and we signed in January of 2020. And if you
January
know,
of 2020?
yeah, and you know, how your eyes just lit up, didn't it? So as everyone already knows, 2020 was a horrendous year for the entire world. And little did we know, just 2 weeks after we had signed those papers,
Oh,
COVID would hit.
that is crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy, Sean.
yeah. And we were like, wow, we are screwed.
Right. I would
Yeah,
think the same thing, but you've come this far.
it was not easy. Like during, man, this is a lot. So during that time, City Hall decided to close down, meaning that you couldn't get any permits, no construction was allowed to be done, and you were just at
Right.
a limbo. But there's a ticking time bomb because you signed a lease, meaning that you have to eventually start paying your rent. And but if you can't even open your concept or do work on your concept to make sales, how are you paying that rent? You're bleeding your capital. What do you need that capital to open and to pay your workers, pay for supplies, pay for construction to build out, which hasn't even started. Like it's already a disaster.
I want to cry thinking
Yeah,
about
no, no, no.
it.
This sounds like doom. Like you're screwed. But you know, we did some things such as Atlanta. it's a little corrupt in the sense that
Okay.
if you know people, they'll get the job done. So
Okay.
despite City Hall being closed, we had people that knew that were still working behind the scenes that was able to help us kind of get the ball rolling to really get our permits because our landlord wasn't as gracious to give us the whole time or even a reduced rent for yeah, it
Man.
was a rough time. And so they told us in August, like, hey, starting September, you have to pay full rent. And we're like, holy crap, we are screwed. We haven't even finished construction.
Right.
And we are scrambling, and we get connected to someone from GRA, which is Georgia Restaurant Association. They're huge
Okay.
about helping restaurants, especially during this time. And we had to go through a bunch of loopholes, call in, like a city commissioner, which is like one of the top dogs in the city, to give us the A-OK to open without certain permits. Because, we told them, hey, we're a struggling restaurant. We haven't even got a chance to open, and we're going to go
Mm.
out of business and lose all our money, without even opening our doors. And so all of that happened in 3 months from August to October, and we opened our doors in October. But this is the thick of COVID. So there's no vaccine,
Right.
and dine-in is not available. Everyone's just doing takeout. It's a foreign new concept. Nobody's working in the office space, which is I mentioned earlier what we love to
Right.
see, and people are
Yes.
scared to come out. We are working
Oh
super
my word.
yeah, and on top of that, we are complete noobs. We don't know what we're doing in the kitchen. We're still figuring out the logistics and operations and things like that. And
Yeah.
it was an absolute nightmare. We were working 16, 18 hours a day for about
Oh my
56 days straight. My partner and I were hallucinating. We were crying. Just like, yeah, just because it was so hard. It
Yeah, I mean,
was,
I'm gonna cry right now. That's like crazy to me. Because I mean, like, listen, okay, if you, I mean, I feel like people wouldn't really understand the gravity of it all. But I think when it comes to like, I mean, I think about again, I'm putting myself in your shoes, and then like having on top of that a family. I'm like, I can't imagine like the kind of desperation that you felt and like you took a risk,
yeah,
this is a huge risk in itself. And then the pandemic hits and it's like craziness, like
yeah, we
everything
were,
that you were banking off of, like you said, the foot traffic, the working people, like
everything looked great.
everything. It's like, God, what are you doing? Is it
That was it.
basically,
That
yeah,
was basically it.
yeah.
And we just said we can't fail. We just got to keep working. And we were losing
Man,
like 20 grand a month, which is
holy
not.
crap.
That's crazy, guys. Yeah, yeah. We weren't even paying ourselves. And yeah, it was just a really rough and dark time. And I remember January was one of the worst times ever. Half the staff caught COVID. Still no vaccine. So we were
2021.
2021 in January.
Okay.
Yeah, vaccines came out, I think, in May of that year. And then
Okay.
so we had to pray and ask the staff that didn't catch COVID to keep running the store like on behalf of us. And yeah, and
Oh
they
my
did. They did. They really did. They were working crazy hours just as us. And shout out to the original crew that really went through so much mess. And they got a lot of hurt from that because they were the guinea pigs, and my heart breaks for them every time. But I'm just so thankful for what they sacrificed to really help
Mm.
build the concept. But yeah, that was really dark times. And I would say we weren't doing well for like I think in that 2021 of when vaccines came out, there was something called Safe Restaurants America, where they
Okay.
were doing a grant, which means free money. You don't have to pay back like PPE. We actually didn't even qualify for PPE or all of these other money back because we weren't in business, like because we couldn't open for business, So we were just screwed. Like
That's
it was looking
okay.
bleak. Uh, Terrible. Like
Oh.
everything that looked like rainbows and sunshine went from looking like Dante's seventh Inferno. Like, and yeah, that's kind of what it looked like and felt like. But we
Oh
had
my
applied for
god.
this Save Restaurants America the minute that it opened in May, and we heard back 2 weeks later, and they said, "Here is the grant." And it was
Wow.
just, and we were about to close our doors the week before that. I remember telling my wife and crying to her, like, 여보, 너무 힘들어. Like, or she was actually my girlfriend at the time. I was like, babe, like this is, I think we're gonna have to close our doors. Like, we don't have any money. Like, we're not getting enough sales. It's still way too hard. Dining is not normal. Nothing's still normal.
Mm.
Um, we're not getting the sales because, Korean fried chicken, we're one of the first ones to do it in the city.
Yeah.
So it's a brand new concept that people aren't familiar with. So,
Okay.
and you're opening a brand new business and it's a pandemic, like all the odds are stacked against us.
Right.
It was just destined to fail. But then we get that call and says, "Hey, you're approved for this grant." And that grant literally is what kept us afloat. We paid majority of our debts and just kept, even though we're losing money still months after that, it helped soften the blow.
Right.
And to get us to the point where we started breaking even about a year and a half later and started making some money. And I'm not rich by any means, but it takes care of my staff, takes care of our
Yes.
expenses.
Yes,
I
that's
get to take
great.
home a little to take care of my family, and we're just continuing to grow because the first 2 years of COVID of our restaurant history, because we've been open for three, the first two was just surviving.
Right.
This year right here, 2023, is what I call our first normal year.
Oh, that's
And if you know
amazing.
anything about restaurants, your first year or two of regular time, not even COVID time, you are losing money like crazy,
That's what I
especially for
hear.
your
Yeah.
for your first concept. So like,
Yes.
yeah, well, people are like, "Oh man, it's been 3 years, you aren't making money yet," and I'm like, "No, no, no, no. If like, I call it God's grace. Like the fact that we got that grant to pay for everything, and it's all about timing. Like I want to grow and pace out, and I'm sure that will come. But I've learned so many lessons. It was like a PhD course of how to build a brand, how to build, smarter operations, what to think for the next time I open another concept or I duplicate or franchise. Like there
Yeah.
were a lot of lessons to be learned, and I
Amazing.
just take those moments and those hardship as like it was time for me to grow rather than just be impatient thinking like I was just gonna make a bunch of money. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I feel like there's so many, again, yes, it sounds like you learned a lot. And then what's interesting to me though, um and I'd love to hear, your thoughts about what I'm about to say.
Mhm.
I feel like you started the restaurant too because you really are passionate about people coming together to eat, right? And then COVID happens.
Mhm.
And then it's like, I mean, literally the reason you're starting it was to bring people together.
Yeah.
And then like we can't come together like for real, like
Hmm.
literally a pandemic hit and like a thing that I mean I never imagined happening in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I mean how did you feel, like were you confused at all, or
I think I
or were
think
you optimistic, Sean?
No, I was still optimistic because I remember after work, it's 12 a.m.
Yeah.
We break open a can of beer and we just look at the space, me and my partner. We're like,
Mm,
we did this. We
yes.
opened this. It was a dream and it's here, right here. We're
Mm,
sitting in this. And that's how, even though, those 56 days nonstop, 16, 18 hours, that's how we felt every time. Every time.
that's
We
so
just looked at
great.
it. It's like we're here. We actually did it. We've already done what most people wish they did in their lifetime. Um, like everyone hopes and wishes that they could do. Oh, I want to do this, but they don't ever. They just let life pass instead of actually
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
But we didn't say we did that at 23.
Mm.
We had a
I mean,
vision.
yeah, it's crazy.
We had a
It's so
vision. We
crazy.
said we are gonna do it, and we actually did it. And whether it
Yeah.
fails or not, it's okay because um, well, I say it's okay, but the sentiment of that is it's okay because we actually did what most men could not do.
Well, I just it really is amazing to hear it all. I feel like there's so much more you could go into detail about, but
Mm,
I just would like to say, Sean, like truly congratulations. Like I know there's still a long way to go, but to endure the last 3 years and be where you guys are today, I feel like is extraordinary. Truly, truly.
thank you.
Yeah,
It's
no.
it's been yeah, it was a tough past couple of years, but we've again, if there are bumps in life, and as long as you persevere and go through it, you just look back and smile on it and be like, I did that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but I think that's where people get stuck. Like, what do you think? Like, it's like there's this thing they want to do, right? But then there's no plan in place.
Mm,
And so it's hard to execute, you know? something that you just really desire to see happen. But
Hmm.
my hope with the podcast is to be able to tell stories like yours and try to like eliminate the fear of the unknown a little bit,
Hmm.
and allow people to hear stories that, hey, look, it is possible. You just got to push through a little bit or do this. If you know X, Y, and Z, then this could
Hmm.
happen also. And so thank you again for just being really transparent. I'm sure there's so much more. And I hate to put you on the spot, Sean, but I do ask my guests if there's somebody that is interested in knowing more about your story or just learning more about hospitality and being a restaurateur, like, would you be open to me connecting them with you?
Oh yeah, actually, if you're listening to this podcast and want to hear, yeah, reach out, or just DM us, and just say specifically you heard it from
Mm,
the podcast, and you can meet me at my restaurant, and I'll break bread with you and answer any
awesome.
questions you want.
That's awesome. Oh, okay, so like even that, like, um, are you cooking in the kitchen a lot?
No, the
Okay.
concept was made with the intentionality to be a national concept where I
Uh-huh.
don't even have to be in the kitchen. I can teach everybody what I would cook, how it tastes, and so because I want this to be a national brand, the end goal is to be 200,000 stores and then sell to private equity. That I just actually had a business meeting today regarding that about what is my goal, what is my plan, what is the future of Mokja. Yeah.
Okay, so like when will that start happening, you think?
I mean, when it happens, I mean, we're slowly in the works. We're still growing our first store, with this being
Yes.
our first normal year. And if there are any opportunities that arises and if the numbers make sense, we'll take it and we'll move
Uh-huh.
forward with it.
Amazing. Oh man, I'm
Yeah.
so excited. I'm so excited to watch and see it unfold. And I can say, it started, I mean, there's some, I take pride in the city too. I love Atlanta. Like I
Hmm.
said, I went to UC Irvine, never had intention of moving back, but God brought me back here, and
Hmm.
um it is special. It's a special place. So it's really cool that it's starting here and
Hmm.
hopefully will be nationwide one day. Um Okay, we're rounding out our time together, and I always ask the same question to end our conversation: is, what do you like the least about what you do?
Uh, that's a hard question, actually. Well, I guess I'll talk as an owner, not just a restaurateur, but as an
Okay.
owner. Um, it's carrying the burden of being an owner without other people understanding. Because if you're not a business owner,
Mm,
you won't understand the struggles and pains and the perspective that I hold. A lot of times, especially with my customers, they'll just complain about things and not truly understand, or even employees. An employee will never understand the struggles and pains that an owner
mm.
goes through. So those are very lonely experience and
Yeah,
hardships to go through.
yeah, for sure.
But thankfully, I have a loving wife that always consoles me and just tries to understand the best that she can and supports me. I have friends who are also owners and entrepreneurs that I can vent to and explain, but it's a very lonely road at the same time because you do shoulder a lot of responsibility and weight for your position and what you do.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it's difficult if you've never been in that place either, it would
Mm.
be difficult to understand some of the things that you go through. I mean, like, and even the decisions that you have to make by yourself, that some people would be like, why did you make that decision? But you have your own reasoning. Yeah, that would be tough.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you like the best about what you do?
That the food that I created that was a humble dream is now feeding thousands of people every month.
Mm,
That people actually pay for it, and they think it's their favorite restaurants. That we have people from other states. That's when you go visit California, you're like, oh, you have to try this restaurant. We are
yeah.
that for a lot of people when they come to Atlanta, and we'll have like, oh, my friend from New York told me about this spot. Oh, my friend from Miami told me about this spot. So, oh, my friend from Houston told me about this. Yeah, that is a very humbling experience.
Oh my gosh, that must be so fun for you.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Man, now I really have to get to the restaurant. I have not been yet, guys, but I'm definitely going to try to get my family to go to venture to the city and have to try mokja. Okay, last question. Advice. Do you have any advice for somebody that's listening that maybe is interested in opening a restaurant one day? Maybe they're dreaming of that too, or just
Mm.
any life advice at all. I feel like you've given a lot of great little tidbits, but maybe something to round it out.
I'll speak about restaurants actually. Restaurants aren't as beautiful. The margins are tough. But
Mm,
if it's something that you're truly passionate about doing, like there is this facade of like how it's portrayed on the show. Don't think that cooking has to just be I own my restaurant to be successful. Like there's so many different ways to find success in the food industry and have really good work-life balance. That's a super big
mm,
thing that people should strive for, not slaving away at your job and not having anything left for your family and friends, because those are very important things in your life that you should have. So before you fully commit into something as big as a project as opening a restaurant,
mm.
work in restaurants and don't just work in a fast food, which is, that has its own merits. Like work in a small business, try to get to know
Okay.
the owner, get real, I guess, experience in seeing what that looks like. Because that's the closest shoes you'll actually be into if you that's the route you want to go. But
Yeah.
know that there's other ways to do food. There's private events, there's catering, there
Mm.
is being a food blogger or being online personnel. Like there's so many aspects. Don't funnel yourself into one thing and saying owning a restaurant is like the end all goal. Explore all your options and really think about it, because yeah, opening a restaurant when you're locked in a lease, there's nowhere else to go. So take your time, don't rush it, but be intentional about what you want to do. As long as you're intentional about and really honest about what you want to strive, whether it's restaurants or even whatever you want to do. If you have that and you're set up on it, don't keep second guessing and stay on the fence. Just take the first step and start moving forward,
Yeah.
even if they're baby steps, because those foundational baby steps will create these large towers in your life that really will allow you to feel like, yeah, I took those steps, I built this foundation, look at where I am now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that, Sean. I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people, just to start conversations about the things that they love.
Mm,
Because again, it can be intimidating, I think, at times, but the way that you broke it down for me this evening was really encouraging, and I hope that a lot of people will take it to heart.
mm.
Hey guys, you heard it here. Sean is totally willing to hang out with you if you have more questions. So just feel free to. You can probably DM. Is it Mokja ATL?
Yep, that's our Instagram handle.
Okay, yeah, so you can Instagram Mokja ATL if you have trouble doing that. I don't know why you would, but if you did, you can feel free to DM me and I'll definitely connect you to Sean. Sean, thank you again for your story, for your heart, for the people of Atlanta, for the people everywhere, like just
Mm.
bringing people, communities together. Um, I'm all about that vibe. So I really appreciate your story and you taking the time to come talk with me tonight.
Yeah, no, thank you once again. I'm glad that I could share. Hopefully, this helps anyone that's listening. Seriously, I'm not kidding. Please come to our restaurant, not even just to buy anything, but if you want to sit down and learn more or just be inspired with, I know having role models that are Korean Americans is
Mm,
super big for me. So,
yes,
if you're in high school or something and you're looking for role models, or yeah, I'd love to introduce you to other people. If for any specific industry you want to know, it's all about networking. And for you, Blair, please bring your family. We have validated parking, so don't worry about city parking
great.
prices. That's a huge thing, I know. So yeah, come and eat some
I
mokja.
would
I'd
I
love to
would
serve
pay it
you.
anyways just to try it. So, all right. Well, thank you again, Sean. I'm really looking forward to hanging out at your restaurant, guys. If you're
Yeah.
in Atlanta, please go check out Mokja in Midtown. Thanks for listening. Until next time. Bye, Sean. Bye, guys.
Bye.